Welcome to Produce Talks.
This whole business is based on relationship and friendships.
Food is darn simple.
What can we do? What are other countries doing?
How important it is for industry to be talking about this.
We're going back to the farm. We're going back to the whole food.
Hello and welcome to Produce Talks, the CPMA podcast. On this episode, I hand the microphone over to CPMA President Ron Lemaire, who speaks with the 2020 Produce Award winners about their careers, key focuses, and industry changes that they have seen and experienced through the years. Ron first talks with CPMA's 2020 Lifetime Achievement Award winner, Mike Ecker, along with Oleen Smethurst, the Packer 2020 Canadian Produce Person of the Year. This is followed by a conversation with the CPMA Produce Champion, Advocacy Award winner, Member of Parliament for Cowichan, Malahat, Langford and NDP Critic for Agriculture and Agri-Food, Alistair MacGregor. We hope you enjoy this episode and be sure to subscribe and review us on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to And the Winner Is, a conversation with CPMA Award winners Mike Ecker and Oleen Smethurst. This episode is a first in a series of podcasts that will give our listeners an opportunity to learn more about the lives, careers, and industry changes our award winners have seen and experienced, so that we can continue to look towards the future. I'm excited to be joined today by two industry icons, Mike Ecker, CPMA's 2020 Lifetime Achievement Award winner, and Oleen Smethurst, the 2020 Packer Canadian Produce Person of the Year Award winner. I've known both Mike and Oleen in their capacity of CPMA directors, industry volunteers, business leaders, and community champions for many years. It's no surprise they were nominated and selected by their peers to receive their respective awards. Welcome both Mike and Oleen, and congratulations on your awards.
Thank you.
So let's get started, guys. Mike, maybe I'd like to start with you and ask the question. You've been in the industry for some time, and it's been, I'm sure, a long ride on the produce roller coaster with over 40 years in the business. And what is amazing is that you've been with the same employer, Vineland Cooperative, for your entire career. Can you tell me a little bit about how you got into the business?
Thanks, Ron. I'd like to, first of all, before I answer the question, is thank the CPMA for nominating me and picking me as their honorary Lifetime Achievement Award. I'm not sure icon is the right word to describe me, but I'm hoping that I've done just a little part to leave the industry a little bit better than when I found it. As for your question, how did I get started in the business? It was not planned, and did I know anything about it at all? But I did have a farming background, but it was throwing hay bales on my grandfather's dairy farm. I was one of those guys that had no idea where my fruit and veggies came from, but I did know where my milk came from. My schooling was supposed to lead me to be the next great filmmaker. I even had the nickname Spielberg for a while. I probably would have settled for operating a TV camera or at least been a roadie in a rock and roll band. But things one summer made a change for me. And basically, I took a summer job with Vineland Growers and said I would only work for 3 months to help them deliver fertilizer to the farmers. And that was 43 years ago. Basically, I fell in love with the industry and working for one company for my entire career. I started as a dockhand and became president. I think really says a lot about the company that you're working for. That I could grow with inside that company. And that's how I got started.
Mike, well, we're going to get to you. I'm sure you've seen a lot of change over the years. But before we get to that question, I want to ask Oleen, you may not have been in the produce industry for 40 years, but you've been with Costco Canada for 29 and have worked your way through the company and now working in corporate foods. How has retail food changed over the years in your eyes?
It's a great question. Retail food has changed dramatically over the years, as have consumers. They're much more, so I'll talk about the consumer thing first. To me, it makes a very big difference. The consumers are more savvy and they're much more concerned about what they're purchasing and where it's from. They're also seasonality seems to become a thing of the past, to be very honest with you, because customers are demanding year-round supply on most items. So that makes it challenging, because when you're trying to bring something with flavor to the consumers and it has to travel 3 weeks on a vessel, you've really got to be careful. The quality has to be exceptional that's being grown, and the varieties make a huge difference. So everyone talks about local, and local is still extremely important in Canada, but it's a limited season based on the weather that we have here. And the other thing that I think that has changed drastically is the breeders and the seed companies have changed for the better. They are now all talking about flavor and changing as much as they can, driving different flavors into different items, such as grapes, for instance, tomatoes, what have you. And that's driving consumption. So when I think about Brussels sprouts that we used to eat as a kid and what they taste like now, it's night and day. So the food has changed, as have the demands from the consumers, and I think it's all for the better, although it's a lot more challenging to keep in items year round.
You know, it's funny, Oleen, I remember as a kid, and you're right about seasonality, you know, we look forward to strawberry season. And back in those days, you'd walk into your produce store and they'd have a pile of strawberries. You'd take your little small cardboard container and pick the strawberries you like. And of course, the base was almost jam because there was no real cooling. And you'd pick your strawberries, go to the cash, wait, and you'd leave the store, and you'd have that finite season. And consumer wouldn't tolerate that in this day and age. They're expecting those strawberries. While they love that local product in the summer, they're expecting it, you know, coming from whether Florida, Mexico, you know, regardless of destination, you know, coming into the winter months. It's definitely a global market. So massive change. And Mike, that, you know, Oleen was starting to talk a little bit about some of the needs on the grower side. And with 40 years in the business working for growers, can you share some thoughts about what you've seen as the biggest changes in your business over the time you've been with Vineland?
Well, for sure, I can't pick one biggest change. There's been many. But the first one for me was palletization. And that went back, that was a huge change. Everything was loaded by hand onto trucks and unloaded at the other end. And palletization came in, and it was a huge, you know, we just never looked back. But there was some resistance, definitely, you know, cost of trucking and things like that. But that was my first real change that I saw in this industry.
So, Mike, is it true, though, that you, in palletization, you were the guy that set the pallets up at one end and delivered at the other and then took them all apart? It was very manual at the very front end. Yeah,
it was all manual. I still think probably the reason I'm still at Vineland Growers was because of my height, that I could load the top of the trucks. But yeah, it was all manual, lots and lots of labor. But I think the real change in the past, you know, 10 to 20 years has really been led by the retail consolidation and the entry of the two world's largest retailers, Walmart and Costco, into the Canadian market. I mean, I think everything has been driven off of that. I mean, we used to have 6 or 7 depots that used to buy for Loblaws. You know, I remember sitting in a round table with Gail and Weston, and, you know, people from the East Coast saying, I don't know if you can buy from Ontario. We're local. And I mean, Galen looked across the table, and it was like, we're not going backwards here. We are consolidating our buying, and we will have people in the field, and we will move on. And I mean, that's, you know, probably was driven from when you see Walmart and Costco, how they operated. So I think a lot of that change has been driven. You know, the old days, it was the art of the deal, right? I mean, you talk to somebody, technology has changed that so much. I mean, you talked on a day-to-day basis, and you put in your orders day to day. And I mean, we used to write them on the back of your cigarette package and hope that you had the numbers right. Now with technology, I mean, you both agree to a price on a computer, and that's the price. You forecast out, you get your orders a week ahead. You talk a year in advance, and planning is much more prevalent.
Mike, have you found even with all that technology, the relationship is still key?
For me, it sure is. Yeah. Is it less? I mean, through COVID, it's tough. I mean, you see these guys working from home, and you seem to have lost that connection in the office where you can feed off other people, and it's been very difficult. But if you don't have that relationship, somebody that you can trust, that you can trust that if we say we're going to have peaches next week, we have them. Well, we're not always right on, but I mean that relationship between buyer and seller, that the trust factor there is huge.
So, Mike, what do you think the one specific challenge that you've seen and you were able to work through and drive forward with? What are the most proud of in all those changes you've seen in the past?
I guess the most change, the most I'm proud of in my industry here in Niagara, is the consolidation of the growers under the Vineland label. When I started back, we were probably less than 10% of the market. It was so divided. There was like 15 guys that were less than 10% of the market. Different companies, smaller companies that dealt with smaller retailers. Of course, Zehrs was on their own, and Fortino's was on their own, and A&P. We've grown to over 70% of the marketplace now, and hoping that I've had a little part to do with that makes me feel very proud. Niagara is not that big of an area, but farming is a lonely business on a farm, and bringing the whole peninsula together. I had a farmer in Vineland that knew of a farmer in Niagara on the lake by name, but never really sat in the same room and exchange ideas and learn from each other. And that happens now. And that really, I'm proud of that.
It's exciting, when you start looking, and I agree, you see consolidation on retail, but some of the strength we've seen on the grower side definitely is that consolidated efforts to bring the grower community together. And under Vineland, I agree, it's exciting to see, especially how Vineland can support that small grower that may not be able to survive out there without the support of the cooperative. Is that right?
Oh, you're exactly right. I mean, a smaller grower would have went to a smaller retailer. With consolidation, I mean, you needed to come under somebody, and so that you could service these major retailers. I mean, you got 5 of them in Canada now, and they're all 5 of them are big, and you need to be under a banner that you can look after, 6 or 7 loads of peaches a day. And farmers are good at what they do, and we really wanted them to farm and be on their farm, so that they can do the best that they can do. And collectively, they have a marketing force that they've hired, not one that would have to do that each individually. When we put the peninsula together, there really was an east and a west. And now you have the first peach picked and the last peach picked, right? So you can service the needs. So
it's great. That's really, and moving from there, and then Oleen, when you look at your career, from cheese to produce and now corporate food, I'm sure you've seen some significant change, perhaps some good and some bad. Can you share one thing, or maybe more perhaps, that you feel you've seen that we need to include in our day-to-day business to be supportive of success moving forward?
I think the biggest thing that I've seen, and that has the biggest results, is continuous improvement. The companies that we've dealt with that are always reinvesting back into their businesses, and whether it's technology, on farm or packaging technology, everything is helping us do what we do better. It's improving the quality that we're offering to consumers. you've got to be innovative today. You've got to dare to challenge. I mean, some of my staff used to say, that's how we've always done it. And that doesn't work anymore. So I think everyone's trying to make everything that we do better. And if we don't evolve, we're going to be left behind. And I think that's the biggest message that I've seen, and the biggest positive result that I've seen has come from the continuous improvement. I think even Mike, when you and I have gotten together and we talk about specific varieties, we're trying to choose the best possible varieties for what our consumers want, and doing things better. Mike and I walk the fields in Niagara, and we've been eating the Coronation grapes, comes to mind, Mike. When we try them, we're like, nope, we need to wait a few more days before we start harvest on this for Costco, because we want the peak sugar content. So it's recognizing, those little steps make a massive difference to the end result and to the eating quality of what consumers are experiencing when they purchase. And that's helping drive consumption, and it's making us all, better and driving our sales. Not just, the Costcos and the retailers of the world, but also the growers.
It's amazing how, when you look at the complexity, and it's something the consumer really still doesn't understand. All they know is they have an amazing grape, or they have an amazing peach, or an amazing pear that is in their store. You started to talk a little bit about that relationship with the grower and their input. How important is that today, moving forward in combined success?
We talked about the relationship briefly, and to me, the relationship is absolutely vital. I've seen the quality of the produce that we receive throughout the year, because of the relationship, because of the face-to-face, has been exemplary. There's a bond when you meet face-to-face and you walk the fields together and you talk about the future and what the visions are and what we want to achieve together. It creates this, it's this magic that happens. And, even the people working in the pack houses, they've got a pride in what they're doing. They know where it's going. They know what we're trying to do as a team. And it's driven amazing success for us. So I don't know how else.
No, that's great. And you know what, when you start looking at that relationship, and it really talks to the produce community, and you know what, even further than that, maybe Mike, let's talk about the community. You talk about, the peninsula and the Niagara region. I know you're a big part of your community. And you were also awarded the Senate of Canada 150 Medal. Now, for our listeners, this honor is awarded to Canadians that are actively involved in their communities who, through their generosity and dedication and volunteerism and basically hard work, they work to try and make their hometowns and communities and or territories or provinces in Canada a better place to live. I tell you, it's very impressive. And Mike, can you tell me a little bit about some of the work you've done locally to build your community up?
Well, I believe the award had a lot to do with my work at Vineland Growers and what Vineland Growers has done in the community. I mean, of course, the volunteerism, myself is, running hockey, president of that. My wife runs a great community fundraiser, all those kind of things. But Vineland's food donations over the years has been big for us. I mean, we just did a really when COVID hit, we ended up supplying apples to every food bank and every shelter in the Niagara Peninsula on a weekly basis, so that everybody had apples. We sent apples to frontline workers in hospitals, as far as out to Hamilton, and our friends at Norfolk looked after other areas. And every year we donate food to those organizations where we can. That's, we are food, so that's where we've focused.
Yeah, and you know what, Mike? Food security, especially in this during the pandemic. And I know what's really amazing is this isn't just pandemic related. You and Vineland has been doing this for many years, supporting and driving the support of at-risk Canadians and making sure they can eat. And it's very impressive. Oleen, as a Produce Person of the Year, you were selected for the impact you made on our sector. And while it looks at this year specifically, you have many years of driving change and innovation. But I want to focus on your year as CPMA chair. And you had some very big areas of importance that you were looking at for both the industry and the association. The topics tended to be intertwined, as we find in our business. Everything tends to be integrated in our supply chain, but they included flavor, and you mentioned that earlier, connectivity, food waste, innovation, the culture of the business, which you touched on with the growers and others, and food safety. And, we've dealt with romaine and other challenges over the last few years. Were you satisfied with what you have achieved over the last year as chair?
I am and was greatly satisfied with what we achieved. And the CPMA, it's funny. Driving consumption is what we're all about as an industry. And to me, flavor lends itself naturally to that, because if we can get children eating, grape tomatoes and mini cucumbers instead of eating candy, that's the whole point to getting this world healthier. So, consumers are starting to recognize it now. And I think we're seeing more branding of varieties on products to make sure that they understand what they're eating and that they recognize it when it comes back. And I think the grower dedication to working on that, driving flavor is not easy. You've got to grow it properly. You've got to treat it with kid gloves. It takes work to make things taste better, and you've got to be cognizant of it. So I think the whole community, CPMA members, everyone's working towards that in a much bigger way than anyone would ever recognize from a consumer standpoint. So I think as an association and as a membership base, we've done an amazing job, and we're still so far ahead, and there's so much more to enjoy coming into the industry that it's going to be fun in the next couple of years watching flavor get even bigger. Connectivity, I think our customers are wanting to know much more about where their food is coming from. And I think it's an awesome opportunity for CPMA and our members to educate the consumer. They have no clue. I remember the first time I walked into a hothouse and saw everything growing there, I was absolutely blown away. So the average person has no clue where their product comes from and how it's grown. It's an extremely challenging industry that we're in, and I think it would be kind of cool if we could continue to keep sharing that with customers and telling the story. So anytime we have an opportunity to tell the story, we should do so. Food waste innovation and culture was something that we were really focused on as well. And the plastics working committee that we created with CPMA has been amazing. Ron, you and I went to the food terminal, and to have all major retailers in Canada sitting around the same table, trying to come up with ways to make things happen and to make positive change with regards to plastics was an amazing feeling and an amazing accolade, to be honest with you. I don't think we'd ever think that would happen normally. So the industry is coming together, and we're recognizing how important it is. And CPMA is driving that. So that's been amazing. And food safety, I think, when you think about the latest one with romaine and what CPMA has done to go back to government to try to make them comprehend some of the things that they ask for and how it affects the industry, it's been extremely interesting to see. And I think we've got an awesome opportunity to keep improving and continuing to educate government when they do things that they do without saying too much else.
Yeah, sometimes there are challenges, but you know what? We are, funny enough, when you look at our entire partnership or food system, sometimes government can drive you crazy, but everyone is there with the best intention. And we always have to remind ourselves, protecting Canadians, protecting the industry and driving forward. I think you hit it on the head. It's, all those pieces from flavor to connectivity to the food waste and plastics and driving innovation is fundamental. And, for both Mike and Oleen, on that, we know, the old African proverb, it takes a village to raise a child. And that may be a perfect analogy for our sector. It does take an entire produce community or supply chain to drive our business, innovations, and ideas to market. So in your careers, have there been any individuals or, parts of the supply chain that have really played a significant role in supporting where you are today? Maybe Mike, we'll start with you.
I sure would not have had the success that I've had and our company has had without the support of many, many people. I hope I've been over the years a good listener and taken advice from people that know a lot more than I do. My board chairs over the years have had the foresight to lead the company, and I've implemented their plan. So they have been very influential. A couple of guys, I mean, you use the word icon at the start, Ron. I didn't think it fit for me, but it sure fits for these two guys. I mean, I could pick up the phone anytime and ask them questions, and Hugh Bowman and Jim Demena have been instrumental in leading me through my career from my when I was wet behind the ears. Without our retail partners, I mean, I think Oleen's mentioned it. I think we all know without our retail partners, there's no success at all. I started out Larry Keyswater. He gave me my first ad in the business. Frank Spagnola used to make me pick out all the best pears for him.
Don't let the other retailers know that, Mike.
They did now.
Ghislaine Perron at Metro, great supporter. And most recently, Sam Silvestro at Walmart, and of course, Oleen. Both of them have become great friends of our growers in Niagara. And like Oleen said, when you get in the fields with your growers, they make friendships, and they know who they're packing their fruit for, and it makes a huge difference. It's accountability on it. It makes you proud.
That's great. Oleen, how about you?
Oh my God. Do you actually have any idea what that question? It's such a question there's so many people that have touched my career. I can't even begin to name them. But you know what? I was thinking, Ron, when we were talking earlier, we talked about when I first started on the CPMA board. And, it's funny because I remember being told that, there's all the retailers are there. And I'm like, how on earth is that going to work? Because we're so competitive with one another. But it's truly an association where everyone does leave their retail hat at the door. And it's very open and constructive conversation. And I've made so many great connections throughout my time with the CPMA board and the members of the board. And they made me feel like I was part of a big family. They took me under their wing. I hadn't actually, when I started with the CPMA board, I hadn't been in produce all that long. And, Mike Fury, Tom from Thomas Fresh, and everyone was so incredibly nice to me and so welcoming. It was an astonishing feeling. And they've helped guide me throughout my career as well. And if I had any issues, they were there. Like I knew I could always count on them, and I could pick up the phone and we could chat, and they'd help me see things through. And I mean, Mike Fury, I hope to God he one day forgets the conversation he overheard about strawberries that I had with a vendor, but he just seems to bring that up all the time. So we've had some amazing, we've had some amazing relationships that have come from that. But the industry is such an incredibly tight-knit family. It's amazing how much support there is out there. I can think of, ladies in produce that have been there for me when I had questions. It's just an incredible industry, and it's an honor to be part of it.
Before I get to my COVID question, Oleen, you bring up the last point about some of the women in the business. And I want to just throw this question out to both of you is how can we continue to build and drive diversity within our operations and our businesses? The goal within CPMA is to grow diversity and to bring more women and a diversity of ethnicity in the business. How do you think we can get there? And Mike, from the grower side, maybe we'll start there. How do you see bringing more women, specifically as an example, into the business, or are you already seeing it happen?
We see it so much on the grower side where it was just the men, and I've never seen a group of people, women, more enthused about farming. I think they see the good of what they're doing, and they're taking hold. It's like, wow, we have, we've always had our challenges at CPMA, but I mean, we've come through with some real good women, and I know in our own organization, I see it happening, and it's good.
Exciting to see, Mike. I know there's a huge drive on women farmers now, which is exciting to see, and that's trickling through the supply chain. Young women looking at the agriculture sector and produce as an opportunity, whether that's in farming or economics or technology. Oleen, how about you on the retail side? Have you started to see a change on the buy and on the merchandising side?
I think we still have a ways to go. I'll be honest with you. I think there's some extremely talented ladies in the profession, but I think, Ron, it comes down to companies recognizing them and giving them the opportunity to be part of the CPMA. Like for CPMA, for us to get people involved, they need to be to start working on the committees. And I think our member companies need to identify the women in their worlds that have the ability and the talent that they can, become part of CPMA and learn and be guided by the mentors in the industry to achieve everything they possibly can. So I think it comes from the companies identifying that first, and then giving them, allowing them the time to grow and become part of the association, because that's where I saw the biggest growth for me outside of it's, I don't know, I'm not describing this properly, but for Costco, you feel like you're a mushroom some days. We're very much focused on what we are and what we do. We don't think about the industry as much. So getting involved with CPMA for me was such an eye-opener, because it made me realize what's going on in the industry. The grow side, I had a little bit more opportunity because I'm out there all the time with the growers, but it opened my eyes, and that helps you grow when you understand the industry in a bigger picture. So that would be my feedback.
Yeah, no, those are great points from both of you. And you know what? Finally, like I said, we cannot have a conversation without asking around the COVID and pandemic impact that you've both seen. COVID put many challenges in front of us, but what would you consider to be the biggest success our industry has overcome during the past year? Oleen, let's start with you.
Okay, the one time I thought you were going to start with Mike. Nice. I think actually from the buy side, we saw increases in sales that we've never seen before, let's be honest. And my God, the poor vendors, I say a massive thank you to everyone that's helped us come through this. We didn't know, you don't know what to order, because you don't know when it's going to end, how far it's going to go. So the forecasting was absurd, and the vendors, everything in their power to make sure that we were in stock and to get the product flowing to us, which was remarkable, because it was an absolute, fiasco, to be very honest with you. So the fact that the industry was so flexible and capable and got together and managed to get us and everyone else in retail the product that we needed to feed Canadians was incredible.
So Mike, what do you think, building on that?
The job that the whole supply chain did, from people picking the fruit, the farmers, the truckers, the people in the distribution centers at our warehouses, the people in the stores, the job that we did of keeping all our workers safe is nothing short of heroic. We stepped up, we did things that we never probably thought we could do. When the pandemic first hit, it was like, just throw up your hands and walk away. And it's like, no, we got to feed Canadians. And this industry it's healthy food, and they got to get it. And we did everything in our power. And I can't believe the way the industry stepped up and kept everyone safe. It was an excellent job by all.
Yeah, I agree. You know what? Seeing how the industry was able to adjust and meet demand, it's truly amazing. And Mike, you're hitting on how the industry adapted and worked with the foreign worker issues, challenges at the beginning, and the uncertainty of even are we going to have enough workers to even get product in the ground and or product off the trees, as an example. And on that note, looking forward, so we're moving now into phase 2. We already have restrictions in some of the key hotspots across the country. where do you see us going in the coming year? What do you think the future looks like? And Oleen, let's go back to you again.
Nice. To be honest with you, I'm not sure what the biggest impact is going to be over the next year. I think we need to maintain the flexibility that we've seen we're capable of achieving in order to get through whatever ends up happening. I still think that climate is going to be the biggest challenge. It's not COVID related, but it is the biggest challenge that we face as an industry. For instance, there's a restriction going on water going into one of the areas in Morocco, which makes, incredible. It's going to make an incredibly difficult time of year, even potentially drastically different. So I think we've dealt so well with everything that's happened with COVID, from, container shortages. We're through all of that and we figured everything out. I think the one thing that may still be tricky is going to be forecasting on the retail side and how the growers will know what to plant. That's the one thing that comes to mind thinking about what may be a challenge apart from climate.
Mike, how about the grower perspective, the year ahead?
Well, I agree with Oleen. We don't know what that biggest challenge is going to be yet. And I mean, our biggest challenge will be to adapt to whatever gets thrown at us. For us, I think at the moment, keeping our workers safe through this whole supply chain is still going to be front and center at the moment, to make sure that we can get things on the table. Like Oleen said in the past, I mean, weather's always been our biggest challenge, still will be. But I mean, the safety of maintaining the food chain is most important, and I don't think that's going to go away shortly.
Yeah, well said by both of you. I think, the uncertainty is something that we all look at. And I know our industry has always been able to pivot. And I think the theme in 2021 will continue to be adjusting, pivoting, and driving forward with innovation, as we talked about earlier. Again, congratulations, Mike, Oleen, on your awards. Extremely well deserved. Thank you for sharing your produce story with us today, your impressions on the business and where your vision is moving into the future. It's been very informative. I really enjoyed this conversation, and thank you and congratulations again on your award.
Great. Thank you, Ron.
Ron, can I say a quick thank you? Mike got to say his at the beginning. I didn't.
You can. Go ahead.
So thank you to the Packer and to CPMA and to everyone that actually nominated me for the award. It's an amazing honor and it was a total surprise. So I truly appreciate it and I'm feeling very honored. So thank you to everyone.
Well, most definitely. Well-deserved, Oleen. Well-deserved, Mike. Thank you for being part of this podcast. And that wraps up the first segment of our award winners. Before we speak with our Produce Champion winner, Member of Parliament Alistair MacGregor, let's listen to a short message from our sponsor, Nature Fresh Farms.
Hi everyone, it's Sarah from Nature Fresh Farms. As we consistently offer our customers fresh produce they can trust for quality and incredible flavor, we look for unique opportunities to grow new products and develop partnerships with even more industry members. With an incredibly dedicated team behind us, we continue to reach new heights and achievements in growing and marketing fresh produce. For more information on our amazing team, visit www.naturefresh.ca.
Welcome back, everyone, to CPMA's podcast, where we're focused on a conversation with our award winners from 2020. Our next conversation is with our Produce Champion Award recipient. CPMA's annual Produce Champion Award is given to one or more members of Parliament or a senator who has been supportive of the produce industry and effective in bringing industry issues to the forefront on Parliament Hill. This year's recipient is Alistair MacGregor, MP for Cowichan, Malahat, Langford, with the New Democratic Party and taking on a range of active roles from critic for agriculture and rural development, an advocate for community-based agriculture, focus on promoting environmental sustainability, And a big one that is really dear to the heart of CPMA is how do we drive and find an end to food insecurity? Welcome, Alistair, and congratulations.
Yes, thank you so much, Ron. It's a huge honor, and it's been a real pleasure for me to work with you and your organization over the last number of years. So thank you so much. Really a great pleasure to be on here with you.
Well, thank you. And you know what? You've been fabulous on the Hill. You're a well-known face and well-known to our industry. And what is amazing is, when I sit down and look at the time that you've been involved in politics, maybe you can give us a little bit of background about how you came to Parliament Hill and how you got involved in the agriculture file.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just remarking yesterday, actually, October 19th was the 5-year anniversary of me first being elected to Parliament. And, I was reelected in 2019, and it's really nice to have the confidence of the people of Cowichan, Malahat, Langford. But yeah, before I got into politics, I had the honor of serving with my previous member of Parliament as a constituency assistant. I did that in 7 years, and my job in her office was really quite removed from the politics of the position because I was there to help people directly. I was a caseworker, so I was often intervening directly between people and various agencies of the federal government to see if we could use the resources of a member of Parliament's office to help them. So whether it was a pension application through Service Canada, a constituent who had a loved one that was having problems overseas getting into Canada, or problems with the tax agency, we can all identify that with that. It was just a really rewarding job over 7 years, stepping in to help people. So that was part of my introduction to politics. With respect to agriculture, my wife and I've called the Cowichan Valley home for many, many years now, most of my life. And of course, the Cowichan Valley here on Vancouver Island, we're blessed with Canada's only Mediterranean-style climate. We have a very long and storied agricultural history in this part of the world. Many families that have been engaged in farming for several generations. And my wife and I are very lucky to have a small farming property here in the Cowichan Valley. We raise our own sheep, we have pigs, we have chickens, ducks. We're also planting an orchard, and really our focus on our property is to build a sort of a holistic little farm that can self-sustain, through prudent use of animals and plants, and having sort of a closed loop system. And, so I've always had that interest in food security issues, in how local farmers are doing. And so when Jagmeet asked me to be the agriculture critic for the NDP in early 2018, that was a huge honor. It really allowed me to bring together the big national role that it is, but also draw on the incredible amount of expertise I have right here at home.
Well, being a member of Parliament and representing your constituents and also Canadians, it's a complex job. And I'm sure you've seen quite a few surprising and or let's call it exciting developments in the Canadian market. What do you feel is the most, call it surprising or biggest lesson learned since you've taken on the role?
Yeah, I think, certainly just in just separating the two roles as a member of Parliament and being the agriculture critic, I think being a member of Parliament, the biggest and nicest surprise was just really discovering people from every part of the country. We certainly all have our different political stripes, but it was really nice to see that despite our political differences, I think every member of Parliament is there for the right reasons. They are there to try and make things better for their local community. They're there to try and forge a good path for Canada. And I guess where the politics comes into play is that we just sometimes have different ideas on how to achieve those goals. With respect to the agricultural critic role, I think, again, the biggest surprise was, stepping out of my small community here in the Cowichan Valley and discovering really with great detail just how diverse we are in our agriculture and just what a huge economic driver the sector is nationally. And I think this is really reflected in the sheer number of organizations that advocate on behalf of agriculture. It seems every single sector has a group that's advocating for them. And I don't think you really see that in any other sector. And that speaks to the importance it has to our country as a whole, but the importance also that it has to each individual region. And, I think when I was just a member of Parliament, when I didn't yet have the role, I didn't really understand just what a huge role the federal government has in agriculture. And if you look at our Constitution, especially Section 95 of the Constitution Act, it does allow for each province to make laws in relation to agriculture. But the thing that stood out for me is that the federal government actually has that primacy role. And so, I think just really discovering that the federal government is a huge player, and there was a lot to learn about just how all-encompassing this role was going to be.
Well, and what's interesting, and as we look at how we bring all those provinces together and how the federal government can be a catalyst to make that happen in agriculture, I do feel over the last few years have seen traction and growth and massive potential, not only domestically, but also in our export strategies. And then COVID. And COVID has made things very different for all of us. Can you tell us some of your experience and what it's been like being an elected official since we've gone into lockdown, come out of lockdown, and now seeing certain restrictions being placed across the country?
Yeah, certainly. I remember that week in March really well. We had that 1 week in March, which ended on Friday the 13th. Probably a day that symbolized things. But yeah, it was on that morning that we really received notice from the Whip's office that Parliament was going to be shutting down. Because of the dangers of COVID-19, the case counts were really starting to spike right across the country. And when I got home that weekend, and I had to make the decision to tell my constituency staff, we're going to be working from home for a while. We're going to keep the constituency office closed. And we really had no idea back then of just how long and brutal this experience was going to be. It's been a very real struggle for myself as a member of Parliament, and I think all of my colleagues will go through this. And I think the struggle has been when everything's closing down all around you, and I'm a member of Parliament. I love to get involved with my community. I love to travel around to all the various events, and that's suddenly been shut off. You don't have that face-to-face interaction with your constituents anymore, and so it's a real struggle to try. It was a real struggle to try and define, what's my role in the community right now. And really, I think it came down to two things. It was information management and crisis management. In those days, the programs and services that the government had on offer, especially in March and April, there were a lot of people that were falling through the cracks. And we, as members of Parliament, we had those constant briefing sessions with ministerial officials, and we were providing feedback. And so the information on what programs were on offer, how they were changing, that was changing on a daily basis, and just trying to keep your constituents apprised of those changes was a real struggle. But also, we had an absolute tsunami of people calling our office, emailing our office, who were out of work, who had their small businesses shut down. And really, that was the crisis management, was trying to make sure that we were dealing with that in an appropriate way. I had to have my Ottawa staff jump in and play backup to the constituency staff because, our parliamentary work had ended. So, yeah, I think in summary, it was information management and crisis management. And things have settled down a little bit now, but of course, I think we're going through a second wave.
Yeah, and we're all starting to see that happening in pockets and spikes right across the country. Agriculture at the very beginning was identified as an essential service and fundamental, especially our domestic industry on how we can service Canadians, ensuring that they have food to eat. And especially at-risk Canadians on food surplus programs, which the government put in place. I know your party was active in trying to ensure at-risk Canadians had access to the essentials of life, being Canadian produce as one of those key attributes. What role moving forward with everything we've seen do you think agriculture can play, especially the fresh produce sector, as we look at, moving into the second wave, the goal of economic recovery through the pandemic, and next steps?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. As I referenced earlier, agriculture and agri-food. I don't think many Canadians are aware of just how big a part of our economy it really is. I mean, when we're looking year to year, we are literally talking billions of dollars. 1 in 8 jobs. We are the 5th largest exporter in the world. And I think, tying this into the role that agriculture can play and the fresh fruits and vegetables sector, the common denominator that we all have as humans is that we all have to eat. Everyone needs food. And I think, the international trading situation was unsteady in the months leading up to COVID. And of course, as you noted, there have been major disruptions to our supply chains. So there's a bit of turmoil in the international world, and it's going to be a struggle to try and right that ship. But what I really like is that a lot of people are starting to look internally about how we can build up local resiliency in our communities. And I know that Canada will always be producing more food than our population can consume. And we certainly want to make sure that our export market is as strong as possible. But we also have an opportunity, I think, before us to look at how we can reconnect communities with local producers. We produce an abundance of food, but we still have, the ironic thing is that while we produce a lot of food, we still have a lot of people who are suffering from food insecurity. So I would love to see ways that we can build up that local resiliency. I think there's programs out there like the local food infrastructure fund where we can help build food processing capacity in local communities, really help local farmers develop value-added products instead of selling just the primary source that they're growing. So I think that given agriculture's very, very strong role in our economy already, and the fact that everyone needs to eat, there is absolutely a very real potential for it to be a huge part of our economic recovery. And of course, we want farmers to lead the way on this. And it's important that both provincial governments and the federal government be listening to their needs and working to support them as best we can moving forward on that.
Yeah, what was really exciting to see over the summer was the farmers markets, the roadside stands that were able to operate and flourished compared to other years, which was fabulous to see. But also looking at that food sovereignty discussion that's begun, and looking at how we can reinforce and build upon, I hate to say perhaps a barrier that everyone thought we saw at the beginning, but now potentially an opportunity moving forward, as you mentioned.
And of course, you guys were very happy when Canada's new food guide came out, recommending that half your plate be filled with fruit and vegetables.
Yes, definitely.
And I think that that's also a key thing that we have to remind Canadians is that a part of a healthy diet is going to involve fresh fruits and vegetables. And hey, yes, we do depend on a lot of imports to supply that, but maybe there's an opportunity for us as Canadians to rediscover the amazing produce that is being prepared right in our own backyard.
Agreed. Yeah. Supporting those farmers that are growing and servicing Canadians. We've talked with you many times over the years about protection for those farmers in the event of bankruptcies. And you've been a long-standing supporter and on the Ag Committee and trying to drive forward a model similar to what they have in the U.S. Called PACA, the Perishable Agricultural Commodities Act, where in the event of a bankruptcy, farmers get paid, which sometimes is a challenge. And especially now with COVID, we're seeing a massive disruption in the food service industry as a good example, where there's we're on the cusp of call it a tsunami of potential bankruptcies coming down the pipe that could, and we are already seeing some impact on the produce community. How would you see this moving forward? Do you still see an opportunity for the financial protection tool like PACA, especially with the COVID environment?
I do actually, and I am an eternal optimist, but I'll give you a reason for that. I think first of all that as you correctly pointed out, this pandemic has been a complete jolt to the system. The old way of doing things is now being seriously questioned at all levels, and I think that given the shocks that this pandemic has produced, the danger of so many of our producers falling into bankruptcy, and tying that into really the theme of food security and food sovereignty. I mean, if we start losing these businesses to bankruptcy, we essentially are putting our country's ability to grow food for itself in real jeopardy. And the other reason why I'm optimistic is so first of all, COVID has completely reset the table and produced a completely new outlook on the kinds of supports we need. The other reason I'm optimistic is that we do find ourselves in a minority parliament, and so no one political party has a say in what Parliament's ultimate decision will be. And I think there's an opportunity to use the reasoning that comes out of the pandemic to make the government and the opposition come together and realize that this is a really important tool. There's history too, right? You remember well, Ron, in the previous parliament, there were two parliamentary committees, the Standing Committee on Agriculture, the Standing Committee on Finance, which during that parliament were dominated by Liberals. And they both unanimously came out to recommend that we move to a PACA-like system here in Canada to give our produce growers that protection, because you are dealing with a product that won't last long on the shelf life. That's the danger you're dealing with. And as you've correctly pointed out, the existing provisions in the Bankruptcy and Insolvency Act do not cover it. They are inadequate. So I'm optimistic that there are opportunities to pursue this. And of course, given the fact that I'm standing on the shoulders of work done by my predecessor, Ruth Ellen Brosseau, but also my former colleague, Tracy Ramsey, who was our trade critic, we have a long history in advocating for that and working alongside with you and your organization. That's not going to change at all going into the weeks and months ahead.
Wow, and I too am optimistic. And as you said, hopefully with the common voice within a minority government, we will see change on this file, I hope. So moving forward on that same note, looking at more conversations on Parliament Hill, as you know, the Canadian Produce Marketing Association with our partners, the Canadian Horticultural Council, we tend to hold our advocacy days on Parliament Hill leading into every November. With COVID and the changed environment, this year we are running a virtual fall harvest event. So you've been part of the physical events in the past. You've had our members meet with you and talk about the issues. What can you say to our industry and our members about the importance of being part of these events on Parliament Hill? And this year, being virtual, the flexibility they have to be part of it.
Yeah, it's you're right. It's a completely different ball game we have, and I really enjoyed attending your events in and around Parliament Hill in previous years. It was really nice to have that face-to-face time, but now we are all to some extent confined to our homes, confined to our offices within our and within our little bubbles. I still think events like this it's really important to try every opportunity you have to engage with elected officials at all levels of government, whether it's your local councillors, your provincial members of the Legislative Assembly, or your member of Parliament. I think that the virtual fall harvest that you have, I hope a lot of people are going to be participating, and I look forward to being a part of it as well. But I think outside of that as well, because of the physical distancing requirements that are now in place, we have a maximum number of MPs that are in Ottawa at any one time. So what I think this allows is for your members to now get a few more opportunities during these months when their MPs would otherwise be in Ottawa. Their MPs are now going to be in their home ridings. So there may be more opportunities for your members to connect individually with their MP, to bring issues like PACA to their attention, to talk about how important your sector is to the overall economic health of Canada, and also just what it means to establish that important food security, not only in their local communities, but for the nation as a whole. So, yeah, I mean, these times, as you know, are forcing us to be innovative, and humans have always excelled at being innovative, at meeting challenges head on and trying to find unique ways around them. And I think this time is no different. So whether it's what you're organizing virtually with the fall harvest, or what your members can do individually on their own time, catching their MPs while they're in their constituency offices, there are many opportunities, and it is very important to keep elected officials apprised of these issues, so that when we're debating them in the House or in the legislature or at City Hall or regional government, we're fully informed on the issues and how important they are.
Well, Alistair, you truly are a produce champion. You know what? Hearing everything that we've talked about today, and your passion for your role as a member of Parliament, your constituents as well as Canadians, I'm very happy that you've been able to receive this award in 2020. Congratulations, and I look forward to continued work with you on a range of files moving forward. Congratulations.
I really appreciate it, Ron. Thank you so much to you, to your organization, and to all your members for your continued advocacy on these issues. Appreciate it.
Great. Thanks, Alistair.
Thank you, Ron, and congratulations again to Mike Ecker, Oleen Smethurst, and Alistair MacGregor on your respective awards. A reminder to listeners to subscribe and review Produce Talks wherever you listen to your podcasts. Until next time, fill half your plate with fruits and veggies, continue to seek out new knowledge, and basically never stop growing.